Hello, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to whatever this is, whatever this fucking thing is. I want to show you my books and all the book shit that I have, because I have a whole tower of books, basically. I have a whole tower of books that holds up my mirror. I've taken the mirror down, but like basically that's what it looks like right now. That's without the mirror. Usually the mirror is on top of it. But I wanted to just talk to you about some of my favorite books. I'll show you first the books that I have read, because I've got a lot of books that I want to read. Basically, the whole stack of books is books that I want to read, which is, it's fun on its own, just because I enjoy looking at the books that I want to read, because obviously I picked them out and I've bought them and I've gotten them from places and I want to read them, so that's why I have them, because I think that they look cool in some matter or other. Oh, Scooby's here. Scooby's here. Is she gonna say hello? Scooby! Scooby on the channel. I'll let you go. Run away. I got hair on my mouth. But anyways, first I want to start with my favorite books. So basically, I read this one recently. It's a skinny book. It's like a little bit more, I don't know what you'd call it, like scientific. Like it kind of like analyzes, like. It's called Tomorrow Sex Will Be Good Again by Catherine Angel. And it basically analyzes sexuality in 3 parts. So it goes through consent, desire, arousal, and vulnerability. And it basically analyzes it in 3 different sections. And I like to annotate my books. You can see me I tested one of my pens there. But you can see sometimes my annotations in it. I don't know if you can see anything in there, but I did annotate this book quite a lot, because there were a lot of bits that I was like, ooh, that's really smart. So there's a lot of highlighter and a lot of pen marking. I just like annotating my books. I think everyone should annotate their books, especially if you buy books. Like, obviously, if you get library books, don't annotate them, because that's bad. But, like, if you're buying books, you might as well annotate them, because then when you pass it on to another person, they get to see kind of what your thoughts were while you were reading it. I think that's a really unique experience. One of my other favorite books, I haven't read this in ages. I need to give it a reread, because I barely remember what it's even about. But it's Challenger Deep by Neal Shusterman. Neal Shusterman is one of my favorite authors. He's just amazing. He wrote this series called Unwind, and I was obsessed with it in middle school. And it was like, it's about like teenagers that go to like if you're like basically like instead of juvie, they have like basically this like camp for kids, and then they recycle the kids' body parts and then put those out into the world and like use it for like people that need new body parts. And so like if somebody wants like a designer limb or something, then they can get like a 16-year-old's limb that they just like recycled off of an old another 16-year-old that like committed a crime or some shit. It was fucking insane, but I loved it. So Neal Shusterman is brilliant. I think that he's just such a good author, and Challenger Deep like it kind of meanders through the kind of thoughts of like neurodivergency and kind of like what that means, and that's what this book is about. It's about like kind of anxiety and like how this kid, because it never explicitly says that he's neurodivergent or that he has anxiety or anything, but it just kind of like implies it. Because basically, let me read the back to you. Caden Bosch is on the ship that's headed for the deepest point on Earth, Challenger Deep, the southern part of Marina's Trench. Caden Bosch is a brilliant high school student whose friends are starting to notice his odd behavior. Caden Bosch is designated the ship's artist in residence to document the journey with images. Caden Bosch pretends to join the school track team, but spends his days walking for miles, absorbed by the thoughts in his head. Caden Bosch is split between his allegiance to the captain and the allure of mutiny. Caden Bosch is torn. So it's basically like he's got 2 different things going on in his head. He's got this like kind of psychosis thing that's going on in his head, and then he's got real life. And so he's got like these things, like this thing in his head that's telling him he needs to walk like miles and miles every day because he needs to do it for the hallucinations that he's having. And so it's just I won't spoil too much of it, because I know that I tend to spoil things. I'm known to spoil things, so I'm not gonna say too much about it. But it's a great book. Check it out, Challenger Deep. It's an easy read. It's not very long. It's just a good length. You can tell by like the thickness of it. Like you can tell that that's a good length, and the print is not very big. Or not very small, I mean, sorry. One of my favorite books of all time The Midnight Library. This came out recently. This came out in like 2020, I think. I'm not 100% certain, but this is hardcover because I like it a lot, which anytime I really like a book, I usually get it in hardcover. But I believe this was the one that, was this the one that I got? I don't know if this is the one that I read when I first got it, because I think I first got it in paperback and then I bought it in hardcover because I wanted to hold on to it. But basically, it's about this girl who, I'm not going to spoil it too much, but basically she ends up in this, like, surrealist kind of library where each book is a different possibility of what her life could have been. And it's just a really interesting book on, like, life and perspectives on life. Basically, I'm gonna read the little inside thing again to you. Between life and death, there is a library. Up until now, Nora Seed's life has been full of misery and regret. She feels she has let everyone down, including herself. But things are about to change. When she finds herself in the Midnight Library, she has a chance to make things right. The books in the Midnight Library enable Nora to live as if she has done things differently. Each one contains a different life, a possible world in which she has made different choices that play out in an infinite number of ways, affecting everyone else she knew and many people that she never met. With the help of an old friend, she can now undo every decision she regrets as she tries to work out her perfect life. But things aren't always as she'd imagined she'd be. But things aren't always what she imagined they'd be, and sooner her choices place the library and herself in extreme danger. Before time runs out, she must answer the ultimate question: what is the best way to live? And I went through a really hard point in my life where I was very, like, suicidal, and I was very, like, had, like, thoughts of death and, like, that kind of stuff, and I was just really struggling mentally, but this book kind of helped me get out of that funk. And so I definitely recommend this book to everyone. I think it's a great book. It's super easy read. I read it probably in 3 days. I just sped through it. So Matt Haig, great author. He's written other books. He's written a series that was like about anxiety that I hated. I thought it was terrible because the entire time I was reading it, it was giving me anxiety. I was like, this is terrible. So I don't recommend that series. But he has written other books that I think are good. I can't remember the name of them, but he released a recent one that just came out that was, I think I've read, that was okay. Yeah, it's right here, How to Stop Time. This is the other Matt Haig book that I really liked. And this one I've annotated. You can see I've got my little book pages in there. And I've got, like, highlighted bits. But this one, I don't even remember what it's about. Tom Hazard has a dangerous secret. He may look like an ordinary 41-year-old history teacher. He's been alive for centuries. From Elizabethan England to Jazz-age Paris, from New York to the South Seas, Tom has seen it all. As long as he keeps changing his identity, he can stay one step ahead of his past and stay alive. The only thing he must not do is fall in love. But what if the one thing he can't have is the only thing that might save him? Don't remember what this book is about. I just remember it being really good. So if I'm being honest, just give it a read, because it was one of those books that I just tore through. Matt Haig, again, great author. He did have those 2 one-off books that were just bad, but they were experimental, so I just don't count them as part of his, like, bookography. I don't know what the word for it is, because there's like cinematography, there's a discography. What is the version of books? Like, what's the book version? I don't know. Like, library, I guess. Anyways, I want to talk about Murakami. Norwegian Wood. Murakami has this whole series of books. They're not related to each other, but, like, there's just a print of books where all of the books are printed like here, I have another Murakami here. They're all printed with this circle on it, and I want to have all of them. And so I'm slowly trying to read them. Because I want to own all of them, and I want them all to have the red cover because I think it's so pretty, but that has absolutely nothing to do with the content of the book. But basically, Norwegian Wood, when he hears his favorite Beatles song, Toru Watanabe recalls his first love, Naoko, the girlfriend of the best friend Kazuki. Immediately, he is transported back almost 20 years to his student days in Tokyo, adrift in the world of uneasy friendships, casual sex, passion, love, loss, and desire, to a time when an impetuous young woman called Midori reached into his life and he had to choose between his future and the past. It's just a great book. I'll say it's fantastic. It's not super long. It's really, like heartfelt. Like, it's just really, it's about people, and I love books that are about people. So it's really just, it's just a fantastic book. I just would recommend it to everyone because it's just so great. But that's that. And then a book that I'm sure everyone has heard of, The Song of Achilles. It's an incredible book. It's a romance. It's about, like, it's a gay romance, love queer literature. It's about Achilles and Patroclus and their relationship in ancient Greece. And it's just really, really good. It's really well written. Madeline Miller. I've also read Circe by Madeline Miller. I have Circe in here somewhere. It's just under the stacks, so I'm not going to get it out. But I've got Circe as well, and Circe is also very good. But The Song of Achilles is definitely the best. I recommend it to anyone because it's well written. It's got a really driven plot, and it's really interesting. The relationships are really, really, really well written and really well developed, I'd say. And the ending is just soul-crushing, but in the best way. It's soul-crushing, like, it makes you, like, I've never sobbed at a book, but this book made me sob. And I'm just like, I wish I could reread it for the first time because it was just such an experience reading it. But yeah, those are the books that I've read. Now I've got books that I'm gonna point out the books that I'm excited to read because, actually, let me show you the book that I'm reading right now. So right now I'm reading A Spy in the House of Love by Anais Nin. Anais Nin is a French writer who wrote a lot about sex in, like, the 60s and 70s when it was very taboo to write about it. So a lot of her work is, like, hard to find, but once you find it, it's very good. And it's like she's done prose and shit, and I really like prose. I like poetry a lot as well. So I really enjoy that book so far. It's good. I'm reading it, but slowly because I have very little motivation to read right now. I'm also reading the King Leopold's Ghost, which is a very thick book. She's a thick one, and it's very small print. So I'm working through it very, very, very slowly, but it's good. It's about, like, the story of greed, terror, and heroism in colonial Africa. So it's like the history of slavery and, like, just, like, giving more of a perspective on slavery rather than just, like, here's what slavery was and here's how it impacted the people. It gives a more deeper dive into, like, here's the actual people that were involved in things, and here's, like, the actual, like culture of what, like, that was destroyed because of, slavery. So it's really interesting. My mom bought it for me because she read it and she said it was great. So I don't necessarily trust her recommendations most times because sometimes she'll recommend something to me and I'll end up hating it. Like, she recommended this book to me that I cannot remember the name of, but she recommended it to me. I was, like, reading it, and I was like, when does it get better? And she's like, it gets better, it gets better. And then I finished the book, and I was like, it never got better. And she was like, I thought it got better. And I was like, well, I just wasted a whole, like, week of my life reading this book that you told me was gonna get better, and it never did. I was so pissed off about that. Fuck you, Mom. Sorry. I don't mean that. I don't mean that, Mom. Don't watch this. Don't watch this bit. Fuck you, Mom. I love you. I'm just kidding. But yeah, King Leopold's Ghost. That's a good book that I'm currently reading. It's just very intense. Another book that I can't find, but I know I've put somewhere, is Slaughterhouse-Five. I don't know where I've put it. I have no idea. Actually, wait, I think I do know. I found another book. I found two books. Two of the books that I was looking for. So basically, Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. Kurt Vonnegut is one of my favorite authors. I've got a tattoo for Kurt Vonnegut on my middle finger. I'll zoom in. It says, so it goes. It's hard to see in this lighting, but basically, I love Kurt Vonnegut. I think that he's a fantastic author. I've read a lot of his books. But Slaughterhouse-Five is definitely one of the best. It's considered a classic. This is the one that I read originally. It's so imaginative. Just like so imaginative. And it's basically, I'll read the back to you, but then I'll give you kind of my analysis of it. Slaughterhouse-Five is an American classic and is one of the world's greatest anti-war books, centering on the infamous firebombing. I just realized I've got ink prints all over this. So I must have been doing something with ink and then I accidentally touched this and got ink all over it. Anyways, centering on the infamous firebombing of Dresden, Billy Pilgrim's odyssey through time reflects the mystic journey of our own fractured lives as we search for meaning in what we fear most. It's a great fucking book. It basically, it's anti-war, which is already great. But it does it in such an imaginative way where it brings in like all these like sci-fi elements. But it's not necessarily a sci-fi book because it's also very rooted in reality. It's a really interesting way of writing, and I just think Kurt Vonnegut is fucking brilliant. And I would recommend that everybody read that book because I read it and it changed my perspective on so many things. I was like, wow, literature can be insane. I was like, literature can be so fucking good. Secondly, not necessarily secondly, what is in this book? Oh, I've got a ton of postcards in here. I don't know why that's interesting. It's for a festival that already happened. Well, those are there now. But Just Kids by Patti Smith. So fucking good. I wish I could go back and read this for the first time. I wish. Because this book is so good. It's life-changing. But Just Kids by Patti Smith. Fucking brilliant. It's all about Patti Smith's relationship with, I can't think of his name, but basically, Just Kids, fantastic book. It's all about just like life in New York, living as young artists, like young starving artists, and like living off of nothing, and like just like run-ins with like crazy stars and like people that like blew up and like became huge artists and shit, and just like their little like starting out in New York just as young artists. And it's just really, really interesting and really, really well done and well written. It's just, I have another book by Patti Smith because I love her writing so much that I haven't read. This one is M Train, which is, it's a beautiful cover, especially like next to Just Kids. Like, look at that. Those two together, gorgeous. I love the way books look. Books are like my favorite decor ever. I love books. I will never stop buying books because I think that they're the best kind of decor to have. But Just Kids is fantastic. I would definitely recommend it to anyone, especially if you're like in your 20s. Definitely recommend it because it'll just change your perspective on life. I think it'll give you a new perspective. It'll give you a new way of looking at things, I think. But those are the books that I've read that I would recommend. Books that I haven't read. M Train by Patti Smith, like I was just saying. I don't even know what this one's about. I don't remember, but I want to read it. I want to read Where the Crawdads Sing. I got this at a bookstore thinking I would read it on vacation, and then I never read it. And I will read it eventually because it's one of those books that everyone has read, and I feel like I need to read it as well. I'm trying to get it to fit back into the shelf. I will read it eventually, but I don't have the desire to read it right now. But especially I visited New Orleans, and like it's based on like the South and like that kind of stuff, so that's why I want to read it, because I was like, I've literally been there. That's kind of cool. Another book that I ordered on Amazon, didn't know it would be this fucking thick. It's got the smallest print you've ever seen in your fucking life. It's like the Bible, and look at how thick it is. And it's all about the work of art in the age of its technological reproducibility and other writings on media by Walter Benjamin. I thought it was going to be a skinny little book just like about like theories and shit. No, this is a full ass book. Like, this is a book. It's a book if I've ever seen one. But can I get a counter for every single time I say book? Jesus Christ. But there's no way I'm going to read this. I don't think I'll read it ever. But I'm going to hold on to it, and I'm going to pretend that I'm going to read it at some point. And maybe one point I'll pick it up and I'll start to read it, and I'll be like, yeah, I'll totally finish this, and then I'll never finish it ever. Because that's just the way I like to work. That's the way I like to live my life. And nobody can stop me. Another book that I've read, actually, is called The Guest Cat by Takashi Hiraide. It's spelled Hiaide. Hiraide. Hiraide. I think that's how you say that. But it was just a cute book that I read. It was just cute. I wouldn't say I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to everyone because I don't think it's a book for everyone, but it was an enjoyable book. I liked reading it. But it was just a nice like filler book because I was like in like a reading rut and I needed something to get me out of it. So I just picked that up because it was short and it was easy to read. And it got me out of a reading rut. So if you're in a reading rut, The Guest Cat is very cute and easy to read. And I would recommend it. And what's another book? Foundation by Isaac Asimov. That's a book that I read, or well, I started reading it. I got a little over halfway through it and then decided I was no longer interested in it. It could be really interesting. It's just like, it was just like not my cup of tea, you know? It was just like, I was reading through it and I was just like, this is just like, the writing style was just not my favorite kind of style. Like, it just wasn't speaking to me in the way that I wanted it to speak to me. I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling it. So I stopped reading it, and I'm not used to stopping reading books, because usually I'm like, I will just suffer through a book until I get to the end because I want to finish it. But I'm like I've done this thing, and I've also been doing it with movies, where I'm like, no, it's okay to just stop in the middle of something if you don't like it, because there's no point in forcing yourself to suffer through it if you don't like it. So I've gotten into the thing of being like, if I don't like a book, I'll just take the bookmark out, close it, put it down, not pick it up again, and I'll just leave it there. Sometimes I'll leave the bookmark in because I'll like be like, maybe I'll come back to this at a different point in time. Like, it makes me feel a little bit better than knowing that maybe I'll come back to this, but like, I don't need to feel bad about not finishing books, because like, if a book is bad and I'm reading it, I shouldn't waste my time by finishing reading it. I should just give up on that book. Like, it just makes sense. What I do want to show you are my Don Quixotes. I don't actually know if I have the full volumes, because I've only got 2 volumes of Don Quixote. But basically, they're Don Quixote. Ooh. They're Don Quixote, and they're like really old books. I'm gonna show you. Like, look at the inside of that. Look at how beautiful that is. I'm gonna carefully flip the pages. Like, look at that. Adventures of Don Quixote, Volume 1. I hope that I have all the volumes. I really hope that I have all the volumes, because I went to basically a book fair kind of thing. Like, a book fair for college students, I guess you could call it. But I went there and they were selling these 2 together, and I was like, because I collect antique books and like antiquarian books. I collect them. And I saw these 2 and I was like, oh, I really like Don Quixote's a classic. Like, that'd be amazing to have those in like an antiquarian edition. And so I got Volume 1 and Volume 2, and those were the only ones that were there, so I'm hoping I got both of them. I'm hoping that there's not a 3rd volume or a 4th volume that I'm missing. But who knows? I love them either way. I think that they're gorgeous and I love them. Let me put them back. I've got a kind of weird one for you. What is the play? A Woman of No Importance by Oscar Wilde is an incredible play. I think everyone should read it. It's hilarious. It's so well written. It's so witty. It's a classic, and everyone should read it. And obviously I really enjoyed it because I annotated the shit out of it. Also, I was writing an essay on it, so I think that's why I annotated it so much. But that's that. What other books do I have in here? Oh, I've been wanting to read this book for ages, but it's just so dense. It's another one of those like really like, it's a book. It's Swan's Way by Marcel Proust. Proust? I think it's Proust. But it's like, it's originally French, because Marcel Proust is a French writer, and it's all about kind of not psychology. What's it? Philosophy. It's about philosophy. Sorry if you can see Scooby running around in the background. She's being a wild one. Look at her. What are you doing? She's being weird. She's hiding in my Crocs now. Anyways, but I've been wanting to read this for ages, and I just haven't gotten around to it. And it's philosophy, and I just think that it would be really, really interesting. It's basically book 1 of In Search of Lost Time, which is like a series that he did. It's got like the beveled edges. I don't know how to show this to you on camera. but it's got like the beveled edges pages, and I love when books have that. I kind of love and hate it. I kind of hate it because of the texture, but I love it because of like, I love it because of the texture, but I hate it because of the texture. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. You know, that's just the best way to describe that. Oh, and The Essential Neruda, Pablo Neruda, fantastic poet. There's a lot of these, like I annotated a lot of these, but there weren't a lot of them that I liked. I think Pablo Neruda has a lot of really good love poems, but I don't think that a lot of his other poems are very good. But that's just me. That's just my opinion. Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. That's another good book. I bookmarked a monologue in it. That's actually quite helpful. I don't want to recommend people read more plays because plays are meant to be performed, but like reading plays is really beneficial. And it's really like, you can find a lot of really, really, really good plays. And I'm gonna put these back now. So that's, I think, everything, all of my books for you today that I'm going to be showing you. That's all the books that I'm going to be showing you for today, because I could go on forever. Thankfully, I'm not at my house back home, because back home I have so many books that I could talk about. I could literally do a 40-minute video on them, but I'm not going to do that because I won't be torturing you all with my special interest. But yeah, basically, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. I hope you found a new book that you want to read. And I hope you watch the next video. I hope you stick around. Give this a thumbs up if you liked it. Give it a thumbs down if you didn't like it. I'm fine with either. I want your honest opinions. Give me your honest opinions in the comments. I am open to everything. I love you all. Thank you for watching. Bye.